How much should you be saving for retirement? Now, obviously, this is going to vary depending on your personal situation, how long you have to save, how much you plan to spend in the future, so on and so forth. But today, I want to look at what some of the most popular experts recommend. And then I want to look at two studies that really get into the nitty-gritty details and can hopefully provide you some good context on what a good savings rate might be for you. My name is Scott Caulfield. I am a CPA and a CFA charter holder, and I am the founder of Sophos Wealth Management. All right, so let's look at what some of the most popular financial gurus would tell you to save out there. One of the biggest names in personal finance is Dave Ramsey. He would say invest 15% of your gross income into tax-favored retirement accounts, 401k, IRA, so on and so forth, every month. Now, a popular rule I've heard before is 50-30-20. This is kind of for personal finance budgeting. The idea is that you save 50% of your income goes towards your needs, 30% goes towards your wants, and 20% goes towards savings. Now, that can be rainy funds and other things in addition to retirement, but for this purposes, we'll think of it as retirement. Interestingly enough, I didn't know this until I started looking up this rule. It is actually was popularized in a book that was co-authored by U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. So, we got 15% from Ramsey, 20% from Warren. Another popular personal finance book out there is called The Automatic Millionaire by David Bach. Now, he does something kind of interesting, and he kind of puts people into categories. If they're in the kind of the poor category, they save nothing. If they want to be middle class, they save 5 to 10%. If they want to be upper middle class, they save 10 to 15%. And if you want to be rich or wealthy, you save 15 to 20% of your gross income. I kind of think that's an interesting framing on how much you should save. A couple more. Suze Orman comes out with a minimum of a 10% retirement savings, with 15% being her smarter preferred target. Finally, Tony Robbins, who I don't know if he's really a personal finance expert, but hey, he's still a popular guy. He says at least 10% of your paycheck into a 401k or Roth. While I think those are all interesting, what I like to look at is the data. What's the nitty gritty here? One of the great researchers on retirement planning is a guy named Wade Pfau. He wrote a paper called Safe Savings Rate, a new approach to retirement planning over the life cycle. That's kind of a mouthful. In his study, what he did is he looked at historical data on stock returns, bond returns, inflation, and he's actually done past research too on what safe withdrawal rates are. This time he kind of backs into more, what is the savings rate that you need to get to that could then sustain your portfolio and withdrawals over your lifetime. Now in this chart, you see the bold black line is that minimum savings rate that you need to be safe. It's varied historically, anywhere from about 10% up to about 16%. So 10 to 16% range. The important thing to note with that, though, are some of the assumptions. So he assumes you're going to save for at least 30 years. He assumes that you're going to invest your savings into a 60-40 portfolio, 60% stocks, 40%. He actually goes into a conservative 6-month commercial paper product. So that actually might be more conservative of an allocation than a lot of people's real investment allocations today. He assumes your retirement is going to be 30 years. That's quite a hefty longevity. That's great if you can make it. He assumes no investment fees or taxes, and that your income is going to be a real number throughout your career. Now, for most people, that's not the case. Most people are going to make more income later in their career than earlier in their career, and they're often going to retire with expenses kind of based on that higher income number later in the career. So you're going to want to adjust your savings rate based on your unique circumstances. Can you save longer than 30 years? You could do a lower rate. Less than 30 years, probably a higher rate than he suggests. Do you think you'll earn a higher investment return? You could do maybe a lower rate. Is your income going to be a lot higher and your expenses based on that late in your career? You're going to need to save a higher rate throughout your career. Now, finally, Fidelity has come up with some estimates as well. They're going to base theirs on basically a multiple of your retirement salary. So right before you retire, what multiple of that income do you need? They assume 45%. They assume your retirement savings are going to fund 45% of that pre-retirement income. Now, for somebody that's going to retire or going to start saving at age 25, they think a 15% savings rate is safe. Start at age 30, 18%. Start at age 35, as high as 23%. Now, that is, quite a high level. That 23% is much higher than say, if you're going to save for 30 years and you start at age 30 and retire at 65, which would be kind of assumptions under the other study. 23% is much higher than that 16% top rate. I tend to think the data on the other one, the historical data, is probably better, and that those are more appropriate rates. But then again, I love conservatism, and I think being on the safe side always behooves you. So that's something to consider. Pretty wide range between the two studies, as low as 10%, as high as 23%. So what should you do? Again, it depends on your situation. How early are you starting? How long do you have? What's your expected longevity in retirement? These are always things that, we're happy to help people with. My kind of rule of thumb for a lot of people is start with 15% and adjust from there. That kind of puts you on the high end of Wade Pfau's study, kind of in line with what some of the other gurus would suggest. But this is going to be highly individual. So, I encourage you to check out my website for more information, and please like and subscribe to this channel. Thanks a lot for tuning in.